The house was too quiet. Not the comforting kind of silence, but the kind that seeped into the walls, hollow and heavy. Emily sat on the porch, her coffee growing cold in her hands, staring at the gray morning sky. The wind rustled the bare trees, and for a moment, she imagined it carried whispers of the life she had lost. Her divorce had been finalized weeks ago, yet the weight of it hadn't settled. The absence of her husband lingered like a shadow, a constant reminder of what used to be. She sighed, rocking gently in her chair, her gaze falling on the coffee table where an old photo album lay. She hadn't opened it in years. The edges were worn, the pages faded, but it still held the echoes of another life. Emily picked it up and ran her fingers over the cover, hesitating before flipping it open. The first page hit her like a wave. A photo of her and her husband on their 10th wedding anniversary smiled back at her. She traced the edges of the picture, remembering the promises they had made that day. Promises of forever. Tears welled in her eyes, threatening to spill. She turned the page quickly, trying to outrun the memories, but each photo told the same story. Love, laughter, and a life she no longer recognized. Then she noticed it. A small yellowed envelope tucked between two pages. It hadn't been there before. She was certain of it. The envelope was unmarked, with no return address, its edges slightly frayed as if it had been handled many times. Emily's heart raced as she opened it, unsure of what she might find. The handwriting was unfamiliar, elegant, yet hurried. She unfolded the letter, her hands trembling as she read, "You are not alone in this storm. You are strong, and you will rise again." Emily's breath caught. The words were simple, but carried a weight she hadn't realized she needed. Who had written this? How had it ended up here? She flipped the letter over, searching for more. A name, an explanation. But there was nothing else. Just those 4 lines, etched with a strange combination of strength and tenderness. The letter stayed with her throughout the day, a quiet presence she couldn't shake. She placed it on the nightstand as she prepared for bed, its words echoing in her mind. It was as though the author had seen straight into her heart, knowing exactly what she needed to hear. That night, Emily dreamt of her mother. She hadn't thought of her in years, but now her mother's voice was clear as day, whispering the same words she had always said in times of trouble. In turmoil, look for the light within. When Emily woke, the letter was still on her nightstand, its presence no less powerful. For the first time in weeks, she felt something stir inside her, a flicker of hope, faint but real. The next morning, Emily took the letter to her neighbor, an older woman named Mrs. Adler who had lived on the street for decades. "This was left in my house," Emily explained. "Do you know anything about it?" Mrs. Adler studied the envelope, her brow furrowing. "Strange," she murmured. "I've seen handwriting like this before. Years ago." "Whose is it?" Emily asked, her voice tinged with urgency. Mrs. Adler hesitated, as though weighing her words. "There used to be a woman on this street, Margaret Reed. She wrote letters like these, little messages of encouragement she'd leave for people who needed them. She passed away years ago." Emily stared at her in disbelief. "But how would one of her letters end up in my house now?" Mrs. Adler shook her head. "Sometimes the right words find us when we need them most." Emily couldn't let the mystery go. She started digging through old town records, searching for any trace of Margaret Reed. What she discovered both startled and comforted her. Margaret had lived a life of quiet generosity, known for her kindness and her belief in spreading hope. One day, Emily learned that some of Margaret's belongings had been donated to the town's small history museum. Among them was a box labeled Margaret's Letters. Emily visited the museum that very afternoon, her heart racing as she asked to see it. Inside the box, Emily found fragments of Margaret's life, faded photos, a handkerchief embroidered with initials, and a small journal. As Emily flipped through its pages, she found the words that explained everything. "Perhaps my words will reach someone long after I'm gone, reminding them that they are never truly alone. Margaret's words were a lifeline, a reflection of the pain she herself had endured. She had written the letters not just to help others, but to heal her own heart. Emily closed the journal, tears streaming down her face. She understood now. Margaret had found a way to turn her own suffering into a beacon of hope for others. And somehow, one of those beacons had found its way to Emily, exactly when she needed it most. The days turned into weeks, and the letter stayed close to Emily, a reminder of hope and resilience. Slowly, she began rebuilding her life, taking small steps. She reached out to old friends, started volunteering at the local shelter, and even found herself laughing again. One crisp morning, Emily sat on her porch once more, the letter in her lap. The gray skies seemed less heavy, the air lighter. As she sipped her coffee, she thought of Margaret, a woman she'd never met but who had touched her life in a way she couldn't explain. With a deep breath, Emily took out a pen and paper. If Margaret could spread hope, perhaps she could too. She began writing her own letter. To whoever finds this, I want you to know you are not alone. There is light, even in the darkest storms. Hold on, you are stronger than you think. She folded the letter, placed it in an envelope, and tucked it into the photo album. Someday someone else would find it, and perhaps, just like her, they would feel the quiet strength of words written by a stranger.